Hi, 8th graders. Welcome to our first lesson in our new unit, our new writing unit, the application essay. I want to start by saying how excited I am for this. It's great that we're able to do some new content right now and how much I really feel like we're in this together. I have never taught in this way before. I've never taught using online videos, and you've never learned in this way, and you've never learned this unit. So it really feels like we're starting something new together, and I'm asking for your enthusiasm and your patience as we work through some of these really new and different styles of learning. Some of these things seem new, but some of them are really similar and really familiar to you. We're starting a new writing unit, and we're going to use the writing cycle. The writing cycle is something that we've used all year in 8th grade, and you've used it in 6th and 7th grade before this. So if we were in class right now, this is the point that I would be asking you to grab your notebooks and come on up to the meeting area. I'm sure some of you are feeling very grateful that you're able to stay in the comfort of your couch right now. We're talking about the application essay for this new writing unit that we're doing. An application essay is a short, really powerful piece of writing that lets your reader see who you are. Application essays allow you to show off the really unique, powerful parts of your identity. You'll use an essay like this when you're applying to colleges, but you'll also use it when you're applying to jobs or applying for scholarships. The reason why we're starting this now, even though you're many years off from applying for colleges, is that this allows you to become an expert at talking about yourself and sharing your identity in a way that is really powerful and really meaningful. For today's entry for the application essay, you'll be creating a timeline. So what I'm asking you to do with this is go back and think about your elementary school experience. Think about your childhood up until this point and the points in your life that have really stood out to you. And I want you to ask yourself, what stayed the same about me throughout these points? Or maybe what have been the major changes? I'll show you when I started thinking about these points in my childhood. And here's me as, I'm probably in 3rd grade in this photo. But 3rd grade was one of those times. I chose for my timeline 3rd grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade as some of the really meaningful parts of my childhood. I was a really different person at all of those points, but there were also some things that stayed the same, some of those common threads that made me think about who I was when I was that age. So when you picture yourself at those different points in your life, I want you to think about your talents and your interests and your identity at those various stages. So here's my timeline. When I was in 3rd grade, that was a time of really big change for me. My best friend had just moved away, and I had to go through the process of making all new friends. And I kind of fell into a group of girls that just weren't very nice to me. So for the first couple months of 3rd grade, I was really bullied. I was kind of picked on. And then I went from the kid who was being bullied to the bully. I was the one who was doing the bullying. Also at this point in my life, I really loved riding my bike. And my bike allowed me to access this newfound sense of freedom and independence. On my bike, at that point, my parents were letting me go further away from home by myself than I ever had before. 3rd grade, I was also really into plays and performance. I was able to be in some plays, and I loved having an audience and the chance to get to be somebody other than myself. Then in 6th grade, this was a really different time for me. Just a couple of years and things had changed a lot. I was at the top of the school. The elementary school that I went to went through 6th grade. So it was kindergarten through 6th grade, and in 6th grade you had a ton of privileges. We felt really cool because we were the oldest kids. We got to supervise at lunchtime, we got to serve lunch, and we're the crossing guards. This was also a point in my life where friends became really important. It took me a while to find a group of friends who were really meaningful to me, so once I had that, it really mattered. This was also a point in my life where I was still performing. I made a lot of movies. My family had one of those big old-style camcorders, and I would take it everywhere after school. And I was trying to imitate the things that I saw on TV that I thought were really cool and recreate them on my own. Then in 8th grade, this was a time for me of a lot of pretending. I acted like I knew who I was, but really I was still trying to figure it out. I was pretending that I knew what it was about with friends and clothes and music and all of that, but really I was kind of clueless. In 8th grade is also when I started playing field hockey. And that was really significant for me because it was a time that I got to be a part of a team. And having that team connection was really, really valuable to me at that point. So, writers, this is my collection phase. And for each of those 3 points in my life that I chose, I went back and I thought about what are my interests, my talent, and what aspects of my identity really stood out to me. From there, I started my entry. And to write my entry, I looked back through my collection and I thought about what stood out to me as the same throughout all of these points, or what stood out as the major changes. And I identified something that stayed the same for me in those different parts. Even though it kind of changed shape, I realized that one thing that stayed the same about me is this sense of belonging. So that was the foundation for my entry. So here's what I write. One thing that has stayed the same about me is that a sense of belonging is really important to me. At first, when I was really little, friends just sort of happened. But then when I actually had to start choosing my friends, I realized how important that choice actually was. And that the people that you surround yourself with are such an important part of who you are. I remember one recess where I really picked on this one kid because I thought it would make the cool girls like me. After recess, one of those girls came up to me and said, "Wow, you might actually be like one of us." I stopped in my tracks. I didn't want to be like them. I've realized how important being a part of a team or a group with shared interests is to me. I felt like I could discover who I actually was when I didn't feel pressured to perform or pretend to be someone else. So, writers, let me point out a couple of things that I did in that entry. The first one is that this is free writing. This should kind of feel like a journal entry. I just want you to write what comes to mind, what feels easy for you to think and talk about. But the other side of that, the second point that I want to point out, is that I'm writing in complete sentences and using paragraphs. Remember, we're going for a full one-page entry. The third piece is that I focus on a particular moment. As I started thinking about what stayed the same for me through these, this moment really stood out to me, and I want to include that. So I want you to think about a moment or moments that really highlight the idea that you're talking about in this entry. So let's review your work for this first lesson. The first thing I'm asking you to do is create a timeline of your identity, interests, and talents. Remember to choose at least 3 different times in your life to start collecting ideas on. From there, you're going to write a one-page entry in your notebook about what you see on your timeline. What has always been true about you, or what have been some of your biggest changes? As you're doing that, make sure you think about a moment that stands out to you. I hope you all have fun with this writing process, going back and thinking about who you were, and I can't wait to read all your entries.